If you picked up the Mahabharata for the first time, settled in expecting the epic to open with kings and wars and divine interventions, and found instead a story about a dog being beaten at a sacrifice, you might wonder if you had picked up the wrong book. The Poushya Parva is odd. Scholars have noted it almost apologetically. It is mostly in prose, unlike the rest of the Mahabharata, which is in verse. It has little direct connection to the main story of the Pandavas and Kauravas, and it exists structurally, primarily, to set up the snake sacrifice of Janamejaya, which is the frame within which the entire Mahabharata is later rectified. It is a chapter of stories that seem to meander, to digress, to follow their own quiet logic rather than the logic of the epic's central conflict. And yet, spend time with the Poshya Parva, and something becomes very clear. This is not a chapter that got accidentally attached to the front of the Mahabharata by careless editors. This is a deliberate choice by people who understood something important, that the largest catastrophes in human life almost never begin with large things. They begin with small things. They begin with a dog being beaten, with a man eating his food standing up when he should have been sitting down, with a queen who is not in the room she should be, with a snake king who wants a pair of earrings and cannot resist the temptation to steal them. The Poshya Parva is a study in what we might call the chain of small causes that lead to enormous effects. It is a lesson in the idea that injustice, however minor it seems in the moment, does not simply vanish. It enters the world, it ripples outward, and sometimes much later it returns in a form that is almost unrecognizable, enormous and catastrophic, but traceable. If you follow the thread far enough back to a moment when someone chose not to do the right thing, let's follow those threads. We are told that Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, was attending a long sacrifice in Kurukshetra with his three brothers, Shrutasena, Ugrasena, and Bhimasena. The sacrifice was underway. Everything was proceeding as it should. And then a dog wandered into the sacrificial area. Janamejaya's brothers beat the dog. We are not told why. There is no suggestion that the dog did anything wrong. The dog was simply there, in the wrong place, and the brother had the power to drive it away with violence. So they did. The dog ran back, weeping, to its mother. The dog's mother was named Sarama. And here the text reveals something important. Sarama was not an ordinary dog. She was the dog of the gods, the divine hound whose descendants were all the dogs of the world. She was, in other words, someone whose authority in the spiritual order was real and significant. She asked her son why he was crying. He told her. She went back to Janamejaya, looked at him directly, and said, "Your brothers beat my son for no reason. He did not lick your sacrificial ghee. He did not even look at it. And because of this unprovoked cruelty, evil will befall you when you least expect it." Then she left. Janamejaya was struck with fear and grief. He went home after the sacrifice ended and spent considerable effort finding a priest who could counteract the effects of the curse. Now let's pause here because this opening scene contains more than it first appears to. The beating of the dog was, by almost any measure, a trivial act. The dog was not injured in any lasting way. No great harm was done. The brothers did not think about it afterward. It was the kind of casual, reflexive exercise of power over something weaker that happens constantly in every era of human life and is rarely remembered by those who commit it. But the Mahabharata is telling you it was noticed, it was felt, and the one who felt it had both the standing and the voice to name what happened. This is, in concentrated form, one of the epic's deepest moral insights. The powerful do not get to decide which of their small cruelties matter. The person at the receiving end of that cruelty gets to decide. And when the powerful forget what they have done, and the wronged party has not forgotten, the gap between those two states of memory is where curses are born. The Mahabharata begins before the Great War, before the game of dice, before any of the events we associate with the epic's central conflict. With this scene, a dog beaten without cause, a mother who noticed, a king suddenly afraid. It is telling you, pay attention to who you hurt when no one is watching. Pay attention to what you do to those who cannot fight back, because the universe or something like it is keeping a longer account than you are. After establishing Janamejay's predicament, the Poushya Parva opens into something quite different, a series of stories about a teacher named Ayodha Thomya and his three disciples. These stories seem to pause the main action entirely. They are quiet, almost domestic in their setting, and their concerns feel far removed from the drama of kings and curses. But they are not a detour, they are a foundation. The three disciples are named Aruni, Upmanyu, and Veda, and the stories of their training constitute one of the Mahabharat's earliest extended meditations on what it means to truly learn from someone, what genuine devotion to a teacher looks like, and what kind of character is formed by the willingness to serve without resentment or calculation. Aruni was sent by his teacher to stop a breach in a dike. Water was flowing through, threatening the crops and the land. He went, he tried, he could not stop it by conventional means. The breach was too large. The water kept coming. And then he made a choice that is, in its simplicity, quietly radical. He laid down in the breach himself. He used his own body to stop the flow of water. When his teacher came looking for him, calling his name in the forest, Aruni rose up from the breach and, in doing so, opened the flow again. He presented himself to his teacher and explained what he had done. The teacher, moved, gave him a new name, Udalaka, meaning one who rises up from the flow, and he blessed him with complete knowledge and good fortune. What does this story mean? Aruni's solution was not clever, it was not strategic, it was not efficient in any way that a modern project manager would recognize. He simply asked himself what is needed here, and then he provided it at personal cost without waiting for a better option to appear. There is a quality in this that psychologists who study resilience and problem solving have described as what might be called embodied commitment, the willingness to put yourself, not just your effort or your resources, but your actual physical presence into the service of what is required. Aruni did not send someone else. He did not report back that the problem was unsolvable. He became part of the solution in the most literal possible way. The teacher's gift of a new name is significant. In many ancient traditions, a name given by a teacher or a spiritual authority marks a transformation of identity. You are no longer who you were before you faced this test. Aruni entered the breach as a student trying to complete a task. He rose from it as Udalaka, the one who rises. The test had made him someone new. Upmanyu's story is longer and stranger, and on first reading, it can seem almost cruel. His teacher keeps taking things away from him. First, the teacher notices that Upmanyu is healthy and well fed despite having given away his arms. Upmanyu explains that he begged again. The teacher tells him this is wrong because it deprives others of sustenance. He agrees and stops. Then the teacher notices he is still healthy. Upmanyu explains he has been drinking the cow's milk. The teacher says he should have asked permission first. He agrees and stops. Still healthy. Now Upmanyu explains he drinks the froth that calves throw out when they nurse. The teacher points out that even this deprives the calves. He agrees and stops. And now Upmanyu has nothing. He is in the forest with no food whatsoever. Desperate with hunger, he eats the leaves of the arka tree, a plant with bitter, toxic properties. The leaves blind him. He falls into a well, and from the well, in darkness and pain, he sings a long and beautiful hymn to the Ashwins, the divine physicians, the twin healers of the gods. The Ashwins appear. They offer him a cake. He refuses to eat it without first offering it to his teacher. They tell him his teacher ate a similar cake without offering it. He says he does not care what this teacher did. He cannot eat without offering. The Ashwins, delighted by this, restore his sight and give him golden teeth in place of his teacher's iron ones. The test was not really about food. It was about whether deprivation would break him, whether hunger and pain and blindness would erode his commitment to what he knew to be right. And it did not. Even in the well, even in the dark, even when given an easy way out, he held to his principle nothing before my teacher. This is not a story that maps easily onto the language of modern self care or healthy boundaries, and it is worth acknowledging that honestly, the Poushya Parva is operating within a very specific understanding of the guru disciple relationship, one that existed in a particular cultural and historical context that we should not uncritically adopt wholesale. But underneath the specific cultural form, there is something universal being explored here. The question of whether your values are conditional or unconditional. Do you hold to what you believe is right only when it is comfortable, when you are well fed and rested and things are going well? Or do you hold it, or do you hold to it in the well, in the dark, blind, hungry, with an easy escape right in front of you? Upmanyu's answer was, even in the well, I hold to it. The third disciple, Veda, has the shortest story and perhaps the most practical lesson. His teacher asked him to live in the household and serve without any specific instructions. He did so for a long time, enduring heat and cold and hunger and thirst without complaint. Like the text says, a bull always yoked to a heavy load. When he was eventually released by his teacher and established his own household, he did something remarkable. When his own disciples came to him, he did not ask them to do any of the difficult things he had been required to do, because the text says simply, he had himself suffered from the miseries of living in his preceptor's house. He did not wish to be severe on his disciples. In that one sentence, The Mahabharata describes what it looks when suffering produces wisdom rather than bitterness. Veda could have perpetuated the cycle. He could have reasoned that what was done to him was done for his benefit and therefore he should do the same to his disciples. Many people do exactly this in families, in institutions, in workplaces. I went through this and it made me stronger, so you should go through it too. The suffering becomes its own justification and passes unchanged from one generation to the next. Veda refused. He remembered what it felt like, and he chose not to make others feel it. This is not weakness, it is one of the rarest and most difficult things a human being can do. To allow your own experience of pain to make you gentler rather than harder, to refuse the very natural impulse to compensate for what was done to you by doing it to someone else. After the three disciple stories, the Poushya Parva introduces its most elaborate episode. Veda, now a teacher himself, goes away to officiate a sacrifice and asks his disciple Utanka to look after the house. Utanka does so faithfully. When his teacher returns, he is pleased with Utanka and tells him to ask for a gift, or rather, to ask Utanka's teacher's wife what she wants as a parting gift. This is a custom. The disciple who has completed training offers something of value to the household as acknowledgement of what he has received. The teacher's wife has a specific difficult request. She wants the earrings that belong to the queen of King Portia. She wants to wear them at an important gathering in 4 days. What follows is one of the Mahabharat's most absorbing, smaller narratives. Utanka sets off on his quest and encounters obstacle after obstacle, each one testing a different aspect of his character. The first obstacle is ritual purity. When he reaches to the king, he cannot find the queen. The king explains the queen does not appear before anyone who is ritually impure, contaminated by leftover food. Utanka realizes he has been careless in his ritual cleansing while walking, which was against the rules. He acknowledges this, performs his ablutions properly, sitting down facing east, washing in the correct sequence with the correct amount of water, and then he can see the queen. This is not a trivial point. Ritual purity is the ancient Indian tradition, which was not merely about physical cleanliness, it was about intentionality, about the quality of attention you brought to an act. To perform ablutions while walking was to go through the motions without the attention the act required. It was, in a small way, a form of carelessness, treating something sacred as though it was merely a box to be checked. The queen gives him the earrings. She wants him. Takshaka, the king of the Nagas, wants these earrings. Be careful. On his way back, Utanka sets the earrings down while he goes for water. A naked mendicant, who is actually Takshaka in disguise, grabs them and disappears into a hole in the ground. Utanka follows him into the underworld of the Nagas, the world of these serpent beings. There he praises the Nagas, praises the cosmic forces he encounters, and through a series of encounters that have the quality of a vivid dream logic, including two women weaving a cloth of black and white threads, a wheel turned by six boys, a man, a horse, and a bull ridden by Indra himself, he eventually retrieves the earrings. When he is on his way back, he realizes he is far from his teacher's house and the sacred day is approaching. He cannot arrive in time on foot. And then the man who turns out to be Indra tells him to mount the horse, which turns out to be Agni, the fire god in animal form, and is transported instantly to his teacher's house. He arrives just in time. His teacher's wife, who had been dressing her hair and thinking that if Utanka failed, she would curse him, receives the earrings and blesses him. The section where Utanka descends into the world of the Nagas and encounters a series of cosmic symbols is one of the most fascinating passages in the Poushya Parva, and it repays careful attention. The two women weaving with black and white threads on a loom. His teacher tells him they are Tata and Vidhata, fate and destiny, weaving night and day. The black threads are darkness, the white threads are light, and they are perpetually creating worlds and beings from their alternating pattern. The wheels with 12 spokes turned by six boys, the year with its 12 months and six seasons turning it. The man, Parjanya, the god of rain, the one who brings water from the sky, the horse, Agni, the fire god, the bull and its rider, Airavata, the great elephant who is king of elephants and Indra's mount and Indra himself, and the bull's dung that Utanka was asked to eat on his way and that he reluctantly did eat, the nectar of immortality. It was because of this he was able to survive in the Naga world. What is the Mahabharata doing with these images? It is presenting the cosmos as a set of interlocking systems, each one comprehensible once you know how to read it, but incomprehensible while you are inside the experience. Utanka, while he was in the underworld, could not understand what he was seeing. It was only when he returned to his teacher and asked for explanation that the symbols resolved into meaning. This is a deeply honest observation about the nature of difficult experiences. When you are inside them, when you are in the underworld, when you are lost and the rules of the world above no longer seem to apply, what is happening to you often looks meaningless or terrifying. It is only in retrospect, sometimes long after, sometimes with the help of someone wiser than yourself, that the pattern becomes visible. The black and white threads were always weaving something. The wheel was always turning. You could just not see it from inside the experience. And the dung of Indra's bull, being the nectar of immortality, deserves a specific note. Utanka ate it reluctantly, and the urging of a man he did not recognize, based on the man's claim that his teacher had eaten it before. He had no way to know in the moment that he was eating something sacred. He did it in good faith, following instructions even when it seemed undignified and made no sense. His protection in the Naga world came not from anything heroic he did, but from this one small act of trust under conditions of complete uncertainty. When Utanka finally returns from the Naga world with the earrings, his first thought is not relief or gratitude or the desire to rest. It is anger. He goes to Hastinapur to find Janamejaya, a king whose father Parikshit was killed by Takshaka, the very same snake king who had stolen his earrings. He presents himself before the king and delivers a speech that is, in its way, masterful. A carefully constructed argument for why Janamejaya should be angry, why Takshaka is evil and deserves punishment, and why a great snake sacrifice that destroys all snakes would be both righteous and necessary. As he stokes the sacrificial fire, the offerings of Utanka's words inflamed him. This simile is precise and important. He does not create fire, but it intensifies whatever fire already exists, feeding it, making it burn hotter and longer than it otherwise would. Janamejaya already had grief over his father's death. He already had the curse of Sarama hanging over him, the sense that he owed a debt he could not quite name. Utanka's words did not create his anger, they fed what was already there. The snake sacrifice that Janamejaya eventually organizes will become the occasion of the recitation of the entire Mahabharata, the story within a story, the frame within which Vaishampayana tells Vyasa's epic exists because of Tanka's anger at Takshaka. And that anger exists because Takshaka stole earrings. And those earrings were being sought because a teacher's wife wanted to wear them at a gathering. And Utanka was seeking a parting gift because a disciple's custom required it. And Utanka was in that position because his teacher entrusted him with his house. And that trust existed because Utanka had demonstrated faithfulness when the women of the household asked him to do something improper and he refused, and so on, backward through cause after cause, all the way to a dog being beaten at a sacrifice for no reason and its mother's curse following a king home. The Mahabharata is showing you, before the main story has even properly begun, that nothing comes from nowhere. Every action enters a web of causes and consequences that extends further than we can see in either direction. The game of dice that will destroy the Pandavas has predecessors going back through time, through choices that seem small, through moments where someone could have acted differently and did not, through a snake who wanted earrings and a young man who followed his teacher's instructions into the underworld and came back changed. By the time Poushya Parva ends, with Janamejaya inflamed by Utanka's words and the snake sacrifice about to be organized, several things have been established that will echo through the entire Mahabharata. The first is that injustice toward the vulnerable always generates consequence. The dog beaten at the sacrifice was not a political figure. It had no army, no allies, no leverage, but it had a mother who noticed, and that noticing became a curse. Throughout the Mahabharata, the pattern repeats. The apparently powerless person who is wronged, the casual cruelty of those who think the stakes are too low to matter, and the long, unpredictable consequences that follow. The second is that the quality of your character is revealed not in the grand moments but in the small ones. Aruni in the breach, Upmanyu in the well, Veda in the household, going about unglamorous work year after year. Utanka refusing to eat without offering to his teacher, even when the gods themselves told him it was acceptable. These are not dramatic tests, they are quiet ones, the kind that pass without notice unless you are paying attention. And they are, the Mahabharata insists, the ones that matter most. The third is that the person who has suffered has a responsibility about what they do with that suffering. Veda, who was made to endure hardship, chose not to pass it on. Utanka, who was wronged by Takshaka, chose to act, but he channeled his anger towards justice rather than indiscriminate revenge. The snake sacrifice is not without its own moral complications, as we will see, but Utanka's anger is not directionless, it is aimed. The fourth is that help often arrives in forms we do not recognize until after the fact. Indra in disguise on a bull offering dung that turns out to be nectar. The Ashwins appearing from nowhere in a well, a horse that turns out to be fire itself. The Mahabharata is genuinely interested in the idea that the resources we need to get through and the hard passages are often already present in our experience, already in front of us, just unrecognized. The pattern you cannot see while you are inside it is the very pattern that is carrying you through. And the fifth, perhaps the most difficult thing, suffering that is used as wisdom rather than as bitterness or justification for more suffering is one of the rarest and most valuable things a human life can produce. Veda had the opportunity to perpetuate a cycle and he chose not to. That choice, quiet and unannounced, changed the experience of everyone who learned from him. The Poushya Parva contains events that our modern sensibility finds fantastical. A divine dog who can curse a king, another world beneath the earth, the fire god in the form of a horse, the nectar of immortality disguised as dung. And in chapter 1 and 2, we said that we would not ask you to set aside your evidence based awareness when reading these stories. So let's acknowledge it directly. These did not happen in the way they are described. But look at what the fantastic elements are doing. The divine dog is a way of saying the wronged party in an injustice carries a kind of authority that the powerful often discount. The Naga world is a way of saying some journeys take you out of the ordinary world entirely, and in the disorienting out of the world experience, the familiar symbols of cosmic order are still there, still working, even when you cannot read them. The nectar in the tongue is a way of saying the thing that protects and sustains you through your worst experience is sometimes something so humble and undignified that you would never have eaten it if you had known what it was. These are true things, dressed in mythological form. The form is ancient and culturally specific. The truth inside the form is not. The Poushya Parva is teaching you in the register of myth what it knows about injustice, integrity, suffering, and the long chains of cause and consequence that determine the shape of lives and of civilizations. It is a strange, wandering, digressive chapter, and it contains, in compact form, almost everything the Mahabharata will spend 2 million words saying more fully. Pay attention to who you hurt when no one is watching. In the well, in the dark, hold to what you know is right. And when you come out the other side, choose not to pass on the hardness. Choose to remember what it felt like. That is the Poshya Parva's gift to you before the great story begins.